guests of honor, chief guests, invited guests, teachers, non-teaching staff, students, good morning. My name is Stephen Karish Ndara. I represent the family of the Ndaras here who are here to welcome you, all of you. I take this opportunity to invite our chief guest now, Dr. Richard Munang.
Thank you very much, the representative of the board of directors, the principal of the school, all who have been invited here today, and the amazing students for your wonderful display this afternoon. Please, or morning, give a round of applause to yourself and to the resident priest for your amazing words that were not just touching, but actually culminated in my message today, which is in one word: selflessness. Please look to your neighbor and give a fist bump. And say to your neighbor that you are the one you need to be able to turn challenges to opportunities. Please do that. I can hear, please, do that, do that. I want to hear the voices. Excellent, clap for yourself. It's in very rare occasion that sometimes when you never really knew what is expected, you get an invitation to discuss a subject that many might think that you know much more about, but only for you to discover that the students know much better than you. What I've seen here today is that all of you know something about the environment. You know that the environment is not just about environment, that the environment is health. You know that the environment is about food security. You know that the environment is about justice. It's about equality. It's about the economy. And it's about security, and the list goes on. But let me just put you in the perspective of understanding what many across the continent are going through today. Just take a moment and imagine the following. Imagine trekking up to 4 kilometers each and every day, each and every morning, barefooted to school. Imagine enduring the silence of ridicule from neighbors for having only 1-ton uniform. Imagine waking up with your stomach aching of hunger and going to school without food. Starting the day at best with cold leftovers of corn taken sometimes only with water, and worst on a hungry stomach. That was my life 25 years ago. As a boarding teenager, I grew up in the northwestern part of Cameroon in a small village called Jinquin. Trekking every morning to school, walking long distances, bearing the brunt of crop failure in my mother's farm. That was my life growing up, and that life was not only for me, it's a life of millions of people right in Kenya and across the entire 54 African countries. And that is not a crime, because we can reverse that. I face all these challenges growing up. Many who see me today might not believe that this is where I came from. These are the challenges that I face. The point I am trying to make is it doesn't matter where you come from. Nothing can stop you from taking action to turn a challenge into an opportunity. And that is why we are here today, to discuss why we must then be able to take actions to turn environmental challenges into opportunity. Across the continent, one thing we must always know that I've come to deliver to you today is one message: that God is no respecter of persons. The Creator gave you and me the same brains and the same ability to be able to see challenges as disguised opportunity. Our moral duty is to live limitless lives with the mentality that we can overcome adversity regardless of the circumstances in which we grow up. We should never complain that we cannot take action because we came from a poor home. Never. If no place like Africa, in no place is the winner mentality that I've just highlighted to you more important than Africa today. And therefore, we must be able to seize opportunity to live a life of purpose, to live a life of selflessness, a life of impactful legacy as we touch the lives of millions. And that is what we must all begin to do, to ask the question, what am I useful for? Because the purpose of life is to be useful. And we cannot be useful only for our own selves. We must be useful to do something that touches the lives of others, regardless of whether they're in our own community, or in our own country, or across the entire continent, or the entire world. That is how we can start to make meaningful impact. As I said, I was not born into opportunity. And one of the first words that I heard, I understood pretty at an earlier age from my mom was the word farming, spoken in my mother tongue. And I recall vividly the despair with which my mother broke the news to us that we will not be able to have food, to be able to eat, to go to school. These meant there were going to be consequences of a hungry stomach, consequences of borrowing from our neighbors, those whose crop has not failed. Then we did not understand the reason why my mother could not be able to harvest the beans, the corn in her farm. And today, we know that it was because of climate change. And that was my watershed moment then, to start to understand what is actually happening, that sometimes there are some years that we will have bumper harvest, and there are some years that we will not have bumper harvest. My curiosity started then, and that is the moment that I call my moment of epiphany. My moment that I found my own purpose to start to find solutions. Even at primary school, at secondary school, at high school, at a university, I never ever lose focus in understanding that I needed to study to understand exactly what was happening in my mother's farm. At that moment, no distance was too far. At that moment, no mountain was too high. At that moment, no subject was so difficult to study. I took everything in stride. Over time, I realized that the challenge that was faced by my mother in her farm in the small little village of Jinquin was a challenge that was faced by the entire country, by the entire continent, and even the world. And this only meant that I had to give my best in what I was studying. So it is my sincere hope that all of you girls seated here today, all of you, the students seated here today, have already started to prioritize your own purpose, to find your own purpose from what I have seen, from the songs you have sung, from the poems that you have elaborated. You are already finding your niche to not only be an environmental enthusiast, but also an environmental solution provider. But I urge you to take each opportunity and align with what you are studying, whether it's studying any subject, it doesn't really matter. Once you have a passion for something, you can take it forward. You just heard Elizabeth here, who is not just a towering pioneer of environmental solutions in Kenya, but she's a towering pioneer of environmental solutions across Africa and the entire world. Give a round of applause for Elizabeth. I make these words knowing that the saying that goes, what a man can do, a woman can do better, is indeed spot on. You have all it takes to realize your purpose in life by turning challenges into opportunities, especially under the changing climate. As we are speaking today, the science of a changing climate is established, and there is no gainsaying about that. You heard about the conference that will be happening in just a couple of days from today in Glasgow. But 65 days ago, the science of climate change in what is called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was released, which showed that we have only 20 years to hit a temperature of 1.5 degrees. But the problem is that this is a global average. The continental average, Africa, is warming faster than the entire world. That it means when the temperature reaches 1.5 degrees, the consequences of drought, as we're speaking today, 2.1 million citizens in Kenya are affected by drought.